Hi, everyone. Welcome to the PA FarmLink Wholesale Marketing Specialty Crop 101 webinar. We're very grateful to have all of our panelists here today, and we're excited to share some of the resources we've been working on through our PA Specialty Crop Block Grant. The purpose of today is to go over some of the common requirements and preferences that we've seen in our work with wholesale buyers through this project, and help connect you with resources as farmers that can help you meet those requirements, and create a plan to get into a wholesale market if that is a goal for your operation. To help us do that today, we have multiple panelists from some great organizations here in Pennsylvania and the Northeast. We're very fortunate in this area to have such great resources on all things specialty crops and wholesale marketing. So we're really excited to connect you with those folks today if you aren't already aware of the great work they do. And then we will go a little bit more into some of the work that Pennsylvania FarmLink has done to create some resources and kind of bring some of those resources together. We are really appreciative of Connor Schutte of Voyage Media Works that's helping us run the technical side of this today. And my coworker, Michelle Kirk, is also on the call from PA FarmLink, and she will be keeping an eye on the chat. Feel free to drop any questions in there. We will do our best to come back to questions towards the end of the webinar, and there will also be contact information for you to reach out to any of the panelists today. So we'll go ahead and start introducing some of our panelists here. First up, we have Aleya Fraser, who is a project manager with Chesapeake Harvest. They're a great organization. She's going to share more about what they do, but they do provide some awesome food safety resources to help farmers get into compliance and provide the best product possible. So Aleya, thank you for joining, and please share more about Chesapeake Harvest.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Morgan, for the introduction. Yeah, I work as the project manager for Chesapeake Harvest. We've received funding from USDA NIFA for the past 5 years or so, 4 to 5 years. We're almost on our third round of funding coming up next year. And the reason we keep getting funding and why I think our program is popular is because we work with specifically community-based educators. So we recruit farmers, farm managers, farm educators, people who are, in the trenches with other farmers to learn more about food safety so that they can be a peer educator and do that farmer to farmer knowledge share that we know really helps with the implementation and upkeep of these type of practices that not everybody always understands the importance of. So our program has 3 folds. One of the folds is training community-based educators. So we have a cohort of those every year. I was actually one of the cohorts, and each person gets pretty intense training for free, and we also get paid to be in training to take the PSA growers course and go even further to become a lead trainer. We help teach courses and workshops and webinars. And we also do a lot of field trips and professional development with our cohorts. The second piece of resources and the second piece of work that we do is outward facing. And we put on webinars and workshops every year dealing with food safety on the farm. We like to make them more like field days and field trips. We work with a farmer who we have identified as, exemplifying some type of food safety practice, whether it's worker training or harvest or water, post-harvest handling. And then we'll build a workshop around their operation. And we've done that in person. And because of COVID, we've done a lot of webinars, which is really lucky to everyone here because they're available on YouTube. So you can follow us on YouTube at Chesapeake Harvest, and you can find a lot of our videos that we've taken at farms. that are kind of like tutorials, but also our full 2-hour length webinars that go into depth about, these best practices in food safety on the farm. And then our third piece, which I'm the most excited about and people don't take as much advantage of, so I hope someone on here will take advantage of, is that we will do one-on-one coaching with you. So if you're a farmer who's looking to create a food safety plan or to get prepared for a gap audit, we'll come to your farm, do a risk assessment, and spend hours and hours with you if needed to help create a food safety plan. And yeah, we still have funding to do a couple more of those this year. So if that sounds interesting, you can feel free to reach out. This is our website where you can learn more about our services. Like I said, one-on-one coaching, community-based educator program, and produce safety education and training. Another cool thing about our website is this resource tab, and we call it a toolkit, but pretty much we, have blank SOPs, risk assessments, and logs that you can fill out for yourself or work with one of us to help you fill out for your operation. And then we also have these toolkits based on ag water, cleaning and sanitation, land use, post-harvest handling, traceability, worker training. And if you go to any of these, you'll be able to have access to our Google Drives, which, have all of these resources cataloged and categorized, easy enough for you to find and see and navigate. Lastly, our website has events, frequently asked questions. I encourage everyone to follow us on Instagram. That's kind of where we're the most active. We right now have a really cool series of videos called Food Safety Fridays. Because we're just always trying to innovate and figure out how to reach people more with this message so that it doesn't get boring. So now we're trying to put out more social media, and that's turned into Food Safety Fridays. And yeah, so that's Instagram, follow us. There's YouTube where you can find our videos and our webinars. And I'll drop my email in the chat. So if you're interested in one-on-one coaching, or if you are interested in being an educator, we could also use some more people for our cohorts. We really appreciate if you're a farmer, if you're really passionate about educating other farmers, to reach out and apply and see if it's a good fit. I'll say my email, it's info@chesapeakeharvest.com, and I'll also put it in the chat box. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aleya. I know I personally have used a lot of Chesapeake Harvest resources, attended some of their webinars. I find their toolkits to be especially helpful. They have some great templates and just resources to use there that are actually really easy to navigate and utilize. So thank you so much for joining us today. Next, we have Tabitha Barbarito, who is a project manager with PASA, which I know many of you are already familiar with PASA. And she's going to share about an exciting project she's working on with the food shed mapping project and some of their other resources as well. So thank you, Tabitha.
Hi, my name is Tabitha. I work with PASA. For those of you who may not be familiar with PASA, PASA is a network of farmers, food system professionals, and change makers. I'd love it if those of you who have not yet met PASA would visit our website and learn more about our work. They're going to drop a link in the chat for you. And also, please don't hesitate to reach out and follow up with any questions about any of the programs or projects you find on our website. Today, I'm going to discuss just the food shed mapping project. PASA is working with many partners like FarmLink to aggregate comprehensive data across the food system in PA, because we understand that navigating the local supply chain can involve time-consuming research and the use of multiple search engines. Some of those existing databases only serve their certification or their membership, and a lot of data out there is outdated. There's not a comprehensive solution. Over the past year and a half, as PASA and partners have explored our regional food system and the data that is out there, we've learned a great deal about the existing gaps in our digital infrastructure. We're working to address those gaps by testing and improving various existing systems and technologies. One example of the technology we are testing can be found at the link that they'll drop in the chat for you now. It's a Buy Fresh, Buy Local Pennsylvania link. And so there you'll see one technology that we're beta testing, and it represents the comprehensive system we're working toward. A priority goal for this system is to address local procurement opportunities and needs. As we enter this next phase of our work, we're hoping to have the privilege to work with some folks like yourself to test these specific use case scenarios. As we've been testing over the past year, we've already seen some real life examples of how implementing technology like this can meet existing wholesale needs. At PASA, and I know a lot of our partners also hear from buyers looking to connect with farmers and producers. And while we're able to give them some really great leads, we're not able to definitively say, here's a list of 5 farmers who could absolutely meet your product need according to this up-to-date data. We're looking to change that with the system. In this fully comprehensive system, farmers will be able to create their own profile and update that in real time. So a farmer can say, I'm selling apples, and a buyer can log on and find all the farms within 20 miles of their facility that are selling apples. And beyond that direct sale aspect of a system like this, on the back end of things, we'll be able to drill deeper into that data and seize new opportunities. Farmers will be able to take a look at their region and see product need and availability. Ultimately, a system like this will be represented across many different websites and will be used to address a variety of needs. And if you're just meeting this project for the first time, please do go on to that website, take a look, share some feedback with us. And if you've got some ideas for this work or would like to plug in, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and follow up. They're going to share my contact information here with you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Tabitha. Really appreciate all the work that PASA does. Excited about the potential for this food shed mapping project. I'd encourage you guys to go ahead and start checking that out. They are still beta testing, and there are some things are working out, but it is already a helpful resource. You can already look up a lot of potential buyers and farmers on there. And certainly PASA has some great webinars and resources, everything from production to marketing, financial planning, things like that. So please check out that resources link as well. Next, we have Jeff Stoltzfus and Becky Chalupa, who are extension educators with Penn State Extension. I'm sure that most of you are familiar with Extension, but you may not be familiar with all of the resources that they have specifically related to everything from food safety, marketing, production, and that is what Becky and Jeff are here to share more today. So thank you so much.
Great, thanks, Morgan. Hi, everyone. So like Morgan said, we're going to share a little bit of an overview, a very brief overview of the resources and services that we can provide for wholesale farmers. First, for anyone who might be joining us today, who maybe isn't familiar with Penn State Extension, I tend to describe it as the community outreach arm of Penn State University. So it's our job to teach and provide technical assistance and resources to farmers, community members, and businesses across the state. Again, I'm Becky Chalupa. I'm joined by Jeff Stoltzfus. We're both extension educators. Jeff specializes in food and farm safety, and my work is focused on market channels, both wholesale and retail. Jeff and I work together. We have a lot of overlap on projects that focus on anything from grower cooperatives to produce auctions to the wholesale readiness program that we'll talk a little bit about today. So we want to give you an idea of the kind of support that we can offer and give you some info on that wholesale readiness program that we're developing. So one way we can support you in your business is to help you explore and weigh your options. You know that growers and food businesses, you have a lot of options available to you, and we can help you think through which might be a best fit for your business. So if you contact me to get some help, I might ask you about your business goals, your production capacity, product diversity, what you like to do in terms of customer service or social media, what tools you have access to. And then we'll try to help you understand what to expect from different channels in terms of those buyer expectations, pricing, logistics, and all those other ducks that you need to get in a row. We do have a free webinar available called Market Channel Matchmaking that our friends at PA FarmLink will drop into the chat. And that will guide you through some of these considerations as sort of a primer. I'm going to pass it over to Jeff to talk about some of the resources that we have available on the extension.psu.edu website for farm food safety.
Hey, thanks, Becky. Yeah, so when it comes to food safety, there's two similar but different programs, I guess, that farmers need to be aware of, especially if you're wholesaling. So the first one is FSMA, which an acronym you'll see a lot of. It stands for Food Safety Modernization Act. So if you go to our website, you'll see a lot of information there on FSMA. And also you'll find our trainings there that we usually offer generally from November through March or April. We don't have any posted right at this time, but we plan to have those up here hopefully within the next month. We have some of those coming up. Some of them are also webinars. So we talk a lot about the Food Safety Modernization Act. The Food Safety Modernization Act it's a law. So all growers, whether you're wholesale or retail, as long as you're producing more than $30,000 worth of produce in a year, you'll need to comply with the Food Safety Modernization Act. But for wholesale growers, the other part of that is the Good Ag Practices, or commonly called GAPS. And so many wholesale buyers will require a third-party food safety audit, a third-party GAPS food safety audit. And I think Elisa alluded to that, Aleya, with the Chesapeake Harvest. There's a lot of tools out there to help you navigate GAPS. So there's sample food safety plans you'll find on our website. And again, some of the logs, risk assessments, you'll find these on a lot of websites. And I'd encourage you, if you have to have a third-party audit, to take a look at all the websites that are out there. A lot of the universities have them. Folks like Chesapeake Harvest have some as well. There's a lot of folks out there. Find something that really fits your operation. And there's some opportunities out there. We occasionally offer food safety plan writing, GAPS food safety plan writing workshops. So if you're interested in that, certainly let us know. We can try and organize that. So we have some tools on our website there, and I think that website location is in the chat. So yeah, any of those kind of things, we're more than happy to help you work with. GAPS is not a regulation. It's just required by growers. So that's the difference between GAPS and FSMA. We hear that all the time. What's the difference? They're very similar in what they ask for. It's just that FSMA is a federal law. GAPS is something that you're doing because your buyer is requesting it. It's not actually a law, but it's a market requirement. So we try to clear that up as much as we can on our website, but we have tools there to help with both. And our contact information's in the chat there and on the slides. So if you have any questions about that, certainly feel free to reach out.
Great, thanks, Jeff. And this is the part that we're really excited to share with you all today. Jeff and I are developing a wholesale readiness training program, which we expect to launch in the fall of 2023. This will be an in-depth course on the key ingredients to wholesale success. You'll hear from industry experts and fellow farmers. We'll take field trips to wholesale facilities. You'll have the opportunity to connect with interested buyers, and it'll cover all those really key aspects of wholesale, including the certification, the packaging requirements, how to find and communicate with buyers, how to understand their expectations. So to make this course as valuable as it can be, we need your input. So we would be so grateful if you would go to the URL that we're going to drop into the chat, or you can follow this QR code to our survey and just give us some feedback about your experiences, maybe your challenges as a grower with wholesale channels, and what would make this a valuable opportunity for you, what you would love to see in this course. All right, if you like to check out the other resources that Extension has to offer, you can go to extension.psu.edu. There's a lot of information there. And here's our contact information. Feel free to take a screenshot here. We'll also drop these email addresses into the chat. Please reach out if Jeff or I can be helpful to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff and Becky. Super helpful. I have participated in some of the trainings that Jeff mentioned related to the food safety FSMA trainings. They certainly have, I've checked out their templates, and they have some great resources as well for training your workers, even in food safety. So please check out all those resources. Next, we have Jackie Scweichler with the Penn State Center for Agriculture and Shale Law. And she's going to share a little bit more about their resources related specifically to some of the legal and liability concerns that you may have related to wholesale outlets. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you. That's a great introduction. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and dive in here. Yes, as she mentioned, I am a staff attorney at the Center for Agricultural and Shale Law. We have a lot of different resources that you can get into if you're interested in learning more about any sort of aspects of legal aspects of farming or farm work or even farm education. So some of the things I have on the screen here, we have our agricultural law weekly review. We've got podcasts. We've got various social media accounts, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. So if you're interested in just sort of keeping an eye on things, I encourage you to follow us on Twitter or Facebook or check out our LinkedIn page. But if you're interested in reading or seeing something a little bit more substantial, definitely check out our agricultural law weekly review. If you subscribe to that on our website, you'll get a once a week email that just gives you a list of developments that's happened recently. So instead of finding out like, oh, they changed that law, 6 months ago, you'll find out, oh, they're changing this law relating to, liability on the farms, or for example, or something like that. So that's a great resource. But if you're looking for something more specific to what we're talking about here, with specialty crops, we do have a few different webinar series that might be of interest, and that's what I'm going to focus on today. So the first webinar series is the legal planning for specialty crop producers, understanding liability protections, regulatory processes, and other legal risks. This is a great series that we started earlier this spring. So to register for this webinar series, you register once and you're registered for the entire program. This makes it really easy to just be registered. You have access to everything. The downside for people who don't register is you do not have access to the recordings of previous presentations. So if you register, you will get an email with a link to all the prior recordings, and you'll get a link to future presentations that you can join and watch those recordings as well. So past webinars for this presentation include legal liability risks from business invitees on the farm. That was recorded back in March. We also have legal liabilities in selling raw and processed specialty crop products, and business structures for operational resilience and liability avoidance. So these ones are older presentations. If you're interested in viewing these, you can register. And if you want, you should get an email within a week or so. But if you want the recordings immediately, just send me an email and I can send them your way. The upcoming webinars in this series, we've got a few coming up in November and December. So if you're interested in licensing and regulatory obligations, or municipal law and zoning, statutory protections and restrictions, those are coming up in November and December. So be sure to register. Those are topics that are interesting to you. We also have another webinar webinar series that we're doing. It's great for specialty crop producers, but also for anyone in education, or this could also be really good for legal practitioners. So if you've got a lawyer friend, or if you are a lawyer and you're interested in agricultural law, this is a great basic series. You can get a CLE credit for this. We cover a lot of different topics. We started this series back in April. So our first webinar was basics of agricultural labor laws. Then we did leasing farmland for energy development, both great webinars. Unlike the specialty crop series, all of these recordings are available to anyone online. So you can find these on our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, look for Center for Agricultural and Shale Law, and you'll find us. So you can check out those recordings there. And then we also had a couple other ones, land use regulation, statutory protections for ag operations. And then we had just recently agricultural cooperatives. So if any of those webinars sound good to you, you can find the recording of those on YouTube. And upcoming, we have just next week is the basics of livestock market regulation and then crop insurance after that. So we have a ton of upcoming webinars. And the last thing I want to highlight, webinar series that I want to highlight, is our quarterly dairy legal webinar. So if you have anything to do with dairy or you do anything with dairy on your farm, I highly recommend this webinar series. It keeps you up to date on all the latest dairy legal developments. And we talk about, a specific focus topic for each one of these. And I didn't list them because there's too many for us to list on a slide. And that is it. And if you ever have any questions relating to laws or regulations or liability, please feel free to reach out. I think my email will be in the chat. So feel free to send me an email or reach out to us through our website.
Thank you, Jackie. This is a great resource for us in Pennsylvania. I know that the legal aspects of all types of aspects of farming can be intimidating to folks. I'm really thankful we have this resource. When I've utilized resources from the Center for Ag and Shale Law, I've found them to actually really help at kind of distilling down the regulation or the law in a way that I can understand. I think they do a great job of that, especially through the format of the webinars and podcasts and things like that they do. So highly encourage you to check that out. And thank you to all of our panelists. The ones that will stick around, and we'll give you a chance to ask them questions at the end, or you can reach out via their contact info that they provided. And many of them are included on our toolbox that I will discuss here in a few minutes. So what I'm going to go over now is as we reached out to different wholesale buyers across the state that were interested in potentially buying produce from local farmers, we did find some kind of common requirements or preferences that tended to keep coming up. And we wanted to include that in our resources that we shared with you all as farmers to help you understand how you can better meet those requirements. And there are many of the resources that were already mentioned will be really helpful to you in that as well. I think one of the most common questions that farmers have, and also one of the most common requirements, is related to food safety and GAP certification. Jeff already did a great job of explaining the differences between the FSMA regulation that comes from the federal level and GAP certification. And GAP certification is voluntary. However, it is one of the most common requirements that we did see from especially the larger wholesale buyers. When you're looking at grocery stores and distributors, that is very commonly a requirement that they have. So it is something to be aware of. It's something to learn more about via a lot of the resources that both Chesapeake Harvest and Penn State Extension offer. They do have some great templates for writing those food safety plans. Penn State provides the trainings that are required for the FSMA side of the regulation for food safety managers. And this is a very, obviously can be a more in-depth topic that might be one of the harder ones to meet of all the different preferences and requirements we're going to talk about today, which is why we're going to go more in depth into that in our webinar next week on September 20th. Lindsay Gilmore, who is also with Chesapeake Harvest, will be going more into depth into food safety requirements and GAP certification to help you better understand how to kind of approach that. So we will have the link at the end of this slideshow and encourage you to check that out. Another preference or requirement that came up quite often was cold supply chain. So if you're not familiar, that is the concept of having chilling down produce almost immediately from packing, and being able to maintain that appropriate chilled temperature all throughout the process from picking and packing in the field all the way to receiving the shipment. Sometimes this is a requirement for especially larger buyers. More often, it's probably more of a preference or something that will certainly set you apart from other producers. So it's certainly something to start working towards. And many of you are already familiar with a lot of these principles of produce handling, but certainly picking produce in the cool of the day, minimizing field heat as much as possible, having product under shade or getting it into methods of chilling as quickly as possible are all very helpful. There has been some research that's been done by different extension agencies in if you don't have access to a walk-in, in ways of using CoolBot technology, which some of you are already familiar with, to try to achieve that. And there is a link that I believe will be in the chat, and it's also in our toolbox that explains how to utilize CoolBots to provide some of that cold storage, and even how to use those in a refrigerated trailer system if you do not have access to a refrigerated truck. So just some ways to maybe work around some of that infrastructure if you're not yet at the scale where you feel like you can invest in walk-ins and refrigerated trucks. Certainly, it's important to maintain that temperature during transportation to the customer. And there are also ranges for that temperature. So a product can become damaged if it gets too cold, as many of you are already aware. And there are some buyers who have a specific receiving temperature range that they will expect product to come in at, and that they will temp at receiving. Some of them may even reject that shipment if it does not fall in that temperature range. So not every buyer does that, but that is something to be aware of. And there's resources that are in the toolbox and that we'll post related to best handling practices for product and what the appropriate temperatures are for those products. Those are also covered. There's some great resources that Chesapeake Harvest has that's often covered in GAP as part of those best practices. So certainly that's an important issue to be aware of. Another common concern that maybe a lot of farmers may not consider if you're at a smaller scale and you're working on scaling up is palletization and standardizing your packaging. So you might be used to packing into recycled crates or just different baskets or older crates that you have, and that can be really helpful at a small scale. But as you start to scale up and get into larger wholesale markets, they will often expect to have items in standardized packaging or even in pallets, because that's just easier for them with their handling systems, their warehouses, things like that. So that's just something to maybe start working towards, depending on what your buyer is looking for and how large you're looking to scale within wholesale marketing. There are also some resources in our toolbox looking at that. You can find some of those resources even at companies like Uline that offer those types of equipment. And there certainly is some efficiencies to be gained even with your labor management and storage if you can start to transition towards that. Even if you're not able to fully palletize, it is important to have some type of standardized packaging that buyers are looking for consistency in how product is presented. And in this resource from NC Choices, they go through every type of produce and what the industry standards are for that, both in terms of appearance, but also in how they're packaged. So that's a really helpful resource we'd encourage you to look into. And one of the other more common requirements that came up among a variety of packers, even among different sizes, was the issue of liability insurance. You may often find that wholesale buyers require you to carry liability insurance. They may have a specific amount of insurance they require you to carry. Often this is a little bit less complicated than you might initially think. It can often be added to your already existing agricultural policy, or if you already have liability insurance for other things like going to a farmer's market, it can often be added. And there are some webinars coming up with the Center for AG and Shale Law that I think do address the liability issue as well. So that would certainly be worth looking into. And here we have the information for the upcoming webinar on, as I said, that will dive more into food safety requirements and GAP certifications. So we really appreciate Lindsay Gilmore teaching that. And you can find that registration link on our events link as well. So please check that out and come back and join us next week for that. That is just kind of a quick overview of the most common requirements that we found in our conversations with buyers. All right. And so other than kind of those common requirements that we discussed, we also worked to put together a list of resources, many of which came from the presenters that you heard from today. And then we put those into a toolbox that FarmLink compiled so that they would all be in one place for you to check out. So I'm also going to go over that toolbox real quick so that everyone can see how to navigate to that. So we're going to start by going to the PA FarmLink homepage, and we're going to show you how to navigate to these resources. So when you go to log on for the future webinar, you'll go to the events calendar, but to find these resources, you go to the resource hub. We have lots of drop-down tabs with many other resources as well that you might find helpful. But these are under marketing. So we're going to go there, and we have several resources related to marketing, farmers markets, but this information related to wholesale markets is seen here. And then you would go to the specialty crop toolbox and simply navigate through that document there. So we've got a lot of items related to food safety, talking about both FSMA and GAP. You'll see Chesapeake Harvest, Penn State Extension, a lot of their resources there, as well as the Produce Safety Alliance. We did compile some information related to UPC codes, barcodes, things like that. That is another common requirement from some of the larger buyers. It's also not quite as complicated as you would think, so definitely encourage you to check those out. And Chesapeake Harvest has some great resources related to traceability and how some of those barcodes and identification can help you meet the traceability requirements of GAP. And we will get more into that next week. We have some resources on the liability insurance and the legal side of things. Here are some of the cold supply chain resources that I discussed earlier. Some things on that is the product standard manual that is really helpful in understanding all of those things. And then there's some more resources related to just wholesale marketing in general. Penn State has a great resource about navigating produce auctions, if that's an area that you're interested in looking into. And then just some general resources, even if you have some questions about production, as maybe you're scaling up your production to meet wholesale requirements. There's some great resources there as well. One that I want to also highlight real quick is Range Me. And in our conversations with wholesale buyers, we often found that Range Me was the way that they were connecting with suppliers. So Range Me is a site that allows wholesale buyers to connect with growers like yourself and other producers. Often this is where you'll find some of the larger grocery stores and larger buyers. You can set up a profile on this site, and this would certainly be encouraged if you are looking for some of those larger buyers looking to connect. Many of them use this site. So we would encourage you to check out this site here and consider making a profile. That is one resource for you to connect with those folks. And lastly, we will show you our buyers spreadsheet. So when we were connecting with buyers across the state, we asked for permission to share their contact information if they were interested in buying from farmers like yourself. So we were able to compile this spreadsheet of some of their contact information and some of their preferences for their different requirements that they may have. So if you go to this spreadsheet and navigate through the tabs, each buyer has a separate tab. It shows the region where they're located, and then you can scroll across this here and see what some of their requirements are. If they can sell to multiple locations of their stores or only one location, do they require organic certification? Some do, some don't. So just by navigating with that, you can find some more information on specific buyers, in addition to sites like RangeMe for some of the larger buyers. So we'd encourage you to do that. And we are working with Tabitha and PASA to get this information included in their food map as well. So that might be an even more user-friendly way to navigate some of that information once it's uploaded. And all of those can be found under the PA FarmLink Resource Hub under the Marketing tab. So we definitely encourage you to check those out. I believe that is all of the resources we wanted to highlight today. Our next webinar, as we mentioned, will dive more into the food safety and GAP certification piece. So we highly encourage you to sign up for that and come back. And just thank you again to all of our panelists. We really appreciate all the resources you provide. Thank you to Connor and our FarmLink staff for helping us with the technical side of things today as well. Couldn't have done that without you too. So thanks everyone.